I'm Alexander Larson, a risk manager.
In this episode, I speak to Aarn, who's the founder and managing director of Value Maximizing Group. We met in Qatar during one of my trips there, and his experience within strategy, risk and governance made for a very interesting interview. He shares his experiences from Canada and his upbringing in oil and gas and how he ended up in risk management and in the end in Qatar and his experiences of Qatar, as well as what risk management is all about.
This is Risk Managers Getting Coffee.
Well, the funny thing is, I think I'm a jack of all trades, and because I know which question to ask. So if you ask me about my background, I started in the oil and gas industry with my father back in the 1980s. In 1985, the oil price went bust. So I went to university and I thought I would do a history degree because what I wanted to learn was how to think and write. That was really important to me. Then I did a master's in history. That brought me into direct contact with original archival material, which in a way is a good training for both being an auditor and a manager and a risk manager, because you find out what the thought pattern is, you can follow it to its logical conclusion, and then you can start advising people on where to go in the future.
Yeah.
So once I finished my my master's, I started working in technology. I started at Sprint Canada, reselling long-distance services.
Right.
And that's where I learned that it wasn't about me. So if I would say to you, hey, have you thought about reducing your long-distance bill, and you would hang up on me, I learned it wasn't personal. It wasn't about me.
Right.
It was about the offer. And I think that was really, really important because it's allowed me to be very fearless in everything else that I do. Made it all the way to the vice president of marketing, but then realized that energy was resurging, so I started doing an MBA. The whole internal control over financial reporting. Finished my MBA, then started working for a number of local consulting firms. And so it was for companies who were listed on the TSE as well as the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange. And that's where I learned how to interact with executives as well. Grew comfortable speaking with them and interacting with them.
Great.
Then in 2010, January, started in QP's internal audit function. It was very, very brittle the way that audit was practiced. Many times it was the auditor's opinion that was important as opposed to what was being audited, like what were we auditing?
Yeah.
And so I started, I focused on governance as well. So I got on the team that wrote the first terms of reference for the board audit committee for Qatar Petroleum.
Okay.
Stewarded that all the way through to completion, and it was accepted and is still used today. And what I did was I started looking for the next big thing for me was risk management. My manager said, well, how about working for managing director, chairman of the board, and the minister of energy, and look at all of the internal audit reports, manage a process whereby you can, wherever there's risk that is identified in these audit reports, let the minister know, or the MD, depending on which hat he's wearing at the time, and then follow up for appropriate action. That was a brilliant opportunity. I was really lucky.
Absolutely. Right.
So risk management is one thing that we needed to focus on. Then what we needed to do was ensure that we had a good business continuity management.
Right.
We worked on that. I worked on that with Abdul Latif Al-Yafi on crisis management to make sure that the whole thing was integrated. Because the last thing that we wanted was, let's say we knew about risks, then we should also then say, well, some of these are really serious. What happens if they actually translate into an event? How are you going to manage that? So
you've really covered the full spectrum from, as you say, audit, internal controls, risk, and then business continuity, crisis management.
It's the most international place I've ever worked. That's one thing. Most people here come here recognize that they're not in the same sort of environment as they are at home.
Yeah.
So they tend to be a little bit more patient, open, and understanding than, let's say, if you're I'm from Canada. also a multicultural, but
Yeah.
not the same way. It's unbelievably safe here.
Yeah.
I remember when I first arrived, I was in old downtown Doha. Well, there was a Bentley that had all of its windows down, sunroof open. It had 2 wallets, 2 phones, and a laptop in the front seat. And in North America,
Yeah, that's gone.
possibly even Europe, that would have been gone, right?
Yeah,
The car
yeah,
would have been
yeah.
jacked and out. So, and I find the Qataris are very charming people.
Yeah.
They're very, very charming.
I know, obviously, there's the IRM, it's the regional group here.
Yes.
And I know that it's quite active. I've been to a few regional groups and they struggle to get numbers, but it seems to be much more active here. And I think, do you sit on the committee?
I do,
You
yeah.
do, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You want to just tell me a little bit about what's happening here and why you think the community is so active?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we've got really great members who really they're passionate about risk, but they're also really aware that they're intellectually curious. They want to
Yeah.
know more about it. One thing that we've noticed, or I've noticed, because I'm also a member of various other associations, and oftentimes a speaker's invited, it's a presentation, and then it's a mingle afterwards.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've decided to do with the IRM is that we brainstormed, like, how can we make this more interactive? The numbers are keeping, because at one point they were shrinking.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is not good. And I said, look, I don't know about you, but I want to learn from my fellow risk colleagues. I want to make sure that I know what I know,
Yeah.
and that that the unknowns are minimized. And the best way to do that is to discuss.
Yeah.
So Hatem, our the president of the IRM chapter here in Qatar, he came up with the idea that we should have come up with a question.
Yeah.
Or a proposition, 3 questions. Then we take the members who are there, we divide them over 3 or 4 tables, and then we talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have a presentation about it, and then we'll take notes. And they have proven to be very popular.
Well, I attended the last one. No, that was really good. And basically, it was split into, I think, 4 or 5 tables.
Yep.
5 people on a table and worked in the groups, and then we had the discussion.
And nobody wanted to leave.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Yeah,
That
we
was
went
the
over
thing.
time, and no one was ready to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, from that, I think there was about 35 people there.
Yep.
This is Risk Managers Getting Coffee.